Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for being here. My name is Carol Brammer, and I had the pleasure of partnering with Pews and Kate Nicole, with the students of SCPA, and with all of our storytellers to bring these stories to life. They are very excited to do this. I wanted to explain a little bit about this process because it's not your average theater experience. Even these students, this was the first time they had really encountered this. So this type of theater is called verbatim theater. It's actually documentary theater. And a woman by the name of Anna Devere Smith, she said many years ago, she's kind of the mother of this form. She's not the only one that did it, but she's certainly the one that brought this form of theater to life. What it is just taking an average, we're all above average, right? But an average person's story in an average day about a topic that they're passionate about or something they've experienced, and then giving it over to an actor. And that actor then takes that story and works very hard to deliver it how the storyteller told it. They don't try to sensationalize it. They never try to make someone a caricature of themselves, but simply tell the story. For that reason, it can often be a more stoic form of theater, because so many of us, when we tell stories, we stand in one place or we sit in one place and we tell you something. What's beautiful about it is the actors have to really study the human being telling the story. They have to look at their mannerisms, and yet, like we said, never taking it into a caricature place, like you might, when you're playing a really cool character on stage in a script. But to be very honest to that person's story and to try to capture them as a human and what they had to say to others. So tonight what you're going to see is 8 different stories, and we decided to leave all of them seated as this is how they were told to us. Other forms of verbatim theater, which we may do next year, you turn more into a Greek choral experience where you start weaving the stories in and out of one another. That's a little more advanced version of verbatim theater. And so for today, we are going to just simply tell you some stories. They're beautiful stories. Some of the storytellers are here. And one of the most beautiful things that some of the students, you'll get to hear what they have to say, but one of the most beautiful things they said, one particular student said, I care about this person and have never met them. And I think that's what stories do for all of us, is connect our humanity to someone else's. So I hope you guys enjoy tonight. A little housekeeping issue. One of our actors tonight, Colin, will be telling Johnny's story. He just received the script last night, so he's going to be really on book. They had the option, because these are about 6-minute monologues. You try to do that, right? Some of them will be using book a little and some not at all. So we're so excited that Colin stepped up for your beautiful story. One of our actors had a bit of an urgent thing happen. And then also tonight, one of our lovely actors will have to leave early for another commitment, but she wants you to know how excited she is to be here. You'll see her too. All right, is that it, Kate Nicole? Did I say everything? Oh, yes, and we wanted this to be accessible to everyone. So we did not charge a ticket price. But as you know, theater does not live in a vacuum, and it most certainly doesn't happen free. So if you would like to contribute, there are QR codes back there, and you can do that. Anything you have will keep this program coming back next year. Thank you so much.
Theresa Thomas's story. Hi, my name is Theresa Thomas. I'm 66 years old. I'm now a cooking instructor, a gardener. I do cooking demos down at the farmer's market. And the reason that I got into all this is because years ago, me and my mother used to have just a strip. It was a garden, and it was in the driveway. And that little strip of garden used to feed everybody at church, everybody in the building, the apartment building we used to live in, and all the neighbors, and I just remember all the neighbors wanted a part of the garden, and I just kept thinking, such a little garden gave so much, And then I had a friend running a summer program down at Ether Taylor School, and she said, well, Theresa, why don't you bring the kids and you could teach them, you could teach them about the garden and stuff. And I thought it was really fun because when you interview the kids, they say, vegetables grow in the grocery store. And I say, in the grocery store? And I say, how do you think they get water and stuff? They say, don't you see the sprinklers go off? And I say, no, vegetables don't really grow in the grocery store. So it was my opportunity with my grandmother, and the way she had her, garden, we got to taste everything from its raw to its natural form. So I thought it would be a great idea if I got the kids to taste with their senses, touch, taste, smell, and I thought it would open up new doors for them. And then later on, I found out when I joined Cumminsfield Community Garden, at the end of the season, we would have grill outs. You bring the grill, you grill some of the vegetables, and you grow some of the fruit. We have fruit trees, and it was really a great opportunity for the children. They came out and they were actually trying more of the Brussels sprouts and the eggplants, and it was just things that they wouldn't have normally ate, And I do a lot of canning, and I use the jellies to cover the vegetables. And it was such a delight. And we got to their parents, and they were taking the fruit off the trees, and then I thought, this is a really good thing. The kids will tell you, they'll say, oh, well, we don't eat that, or, oh, no, we don't eat that. And I say, well, why don't you eat it? Because our mothers don't cook it for us. Our parents don't cook it for us. So what I normally cooked when I was doing the cooking demos, I would normally make stuff that people don't eat. So I would I'll peel the celery and cut it up and let them eat it. And even some of the produce that had bruises on it, I'll use that too, because people would normally throw it away. That was waste. In our house, the waste was used too. I would tell people, we were taught from the garden to the table, back to the garden, so in between the fermenting and the canning, the pickling, and the hydrating, it was used, So, and people who made tomato sauce, they used all the tomatoes. Okay, when we went down to the market, my grandmother, she would say, just be kind, wait. And I'm thinking, why aren't we just purchasing now? And she said, no, just wait. And when we got to the end of the market, it was the men, and they were getting some of the stuff off the truck, and we were getting some of the Brussels, and I was just thinking, man, these old ladies are crazy. And when we got home, and she was doing the canning and the fermenting, and she would have all that food downstairs, and I said, grandmother, we got a whole grocery store downstairs. And, and she explained to me that she went through the depressions and stuff, and that it was just an abundance, so she said she would never do without. If you cook the roast, you take the juices from the roast and you stuck it in the back of the Frigidaire. And, you take the greases from it, you put it in the back of the Frigidaire, and then you take the greases from it and then you use it as primers for the vegetables, so nothing was ever really wasted. So looking around my neighborhood, I'm saying we have a lot of young parents and a lot of babies, and I watch their diets, and nobody's eating at tables no more. Everybody's eating on the go. Like, it's quick foods, for real. And the kids are saying, the kids have a tendency to find their own grandparents. They'll adopt you, and when their mothers got lost, I came up with, it takes a community to raise you, Their parents got lost. The kids will come to me and say, can you be my grandmama? And I was the old lady with the snacks, you know. She always got something for us, you know, and I fed everybody. So the rumor was, go to Miss Theresa if you ain't got no food, and she'll find something for you, or she'll bring something to you. So, you know, so after I was in my 60s, I worked at Target, and I decided, okay, my kids is gone, what do I do with the rest of my life? And I'm a firm believer that you have several stages in your life. The first one is you get grown, you get out of your parents' house. The second one is that you raise your own kids, and now they get grown and get out of your house. The third one, well, what do you do with the third one? You retire, you do something you always wanted, you know, and what is that? Well, for me, I either wanted to buy a new car or go back to school. And what I chose was to go back to school because I always wanted to spend my last years giving back to the community. And I gave back by nurturing and feeding the community. I went through Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2004 and breast cancer in 2014. And today I'm actually going through a different type of Hodgkin's lymphoma. But, you know, it's a rare form of that, but I feel good, you know. I'm going through my infusions, and if I don't tell you, then you never know it. You know, most people kill themselves over a diagnosis, and you know, they don't have doctors, and I don't have the last word, and I've always seen myself well. I never seen myself sick, so I'll move on from that. But it's we make it through a lot of things. You know, we just go on. You know, every time, you know me, people live longer because they have a reason to get up in the morning and they have something to do. And my something to do was share my essence with people. I like to see people smile. I like to make people laugh, make them feel good, you know? And I like them to know we can make it through anything, you know? And I don't care how bad things get. But anyway, y'all know I'm old school, you know. I can survive through anything, you know. If a war broke out, God it hasn't, I could survive on this land. Like, I could make a fire with a hole in the ground. You know what I'm saying?
Bryn Weller's story. Okay, so my name is Bryn Weller, and I'm a professional photographer. My undergrad's in fine arts, and my master's is in sustainability conservation biology. So art and nature are my two biggest passions, and I always say I just want to make art and save the planet, because that's just that. Yeah, I can do all that by myself. No, so this story is a sad conservation story. Not the saddest. I'm not going to talk about like animals suffering and things like that. But so I'm from Cincinnati, but I've lived in Newport for 28 years, and I live in East Newport, which has a lot of trees, which is great. I'm lucky. Big, old trees, beautiful trees. I have a big tree in my backyard. But West Newport doesn't have a lot of trees, but what they did have was this beautiful park called General James Taylor Park, right where the Licking River meets the Ohio River. Beautiful 100-year-old trees and the riparian ecosystem there, which is, you know, an endangered and a really important ecosystem. I'm also a runner, and my running route goes along the flood wall there by the Licking River in General James Taylor Park. So I have been running. This story starts November 2021. I have been running that route for, you know, decades now, right? And my sister was living in Newport at the time, and she was feeding some feral cats in the park and feeding. There are also other people that go to feed the cats that she had met. There are also a lot of geese that, Canada geese that have bred there for, generations. So Chris called one day, my sister, and said, they cut down all the trees in the park. And I was like, what do you mean they cut down all the trees? And she was like, there's like nothing left. So I actually started crying, and I couldn't go to the park for months probably, maybe weeks, maybe months. I changed my running route to avoid it because it was so devastating. So obviously we immediately, and other people in the neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods, were like in a fury. Like, there was no warning, there was no reason, there was no announcement. It was just one day we woke up and all the trees were gone. They did it all like at once, and this beautiful ecosystem just literally disappeared. So they were building luxury condos at the top of the flood wall. And so it seemed pretty clear that they were the ones responsible for cutting down the trees to clear their view of the Cincinnati skyline across the river there. Now, I'm sure if they had taken a survey of people looking at those $1 million condos, that people would have been happy to have trees in the foreground of their view, because who doesn't want trees in their view, right? But then they're thinking, no, we'll just cut down all the trees to clear the view so you can just see the city. And generations of people had enjoyed that park. People were still enjoying the park. Everyone was devastated. I mean, imagine coming to the one place where you can see giant trees and get away from the city, and it just being gone with no notice and no warning. I mean, not only so then those logs, those giant, logs that were like this big around are like laying there, in the dirt, that used to be grass, and there's like despondent geese on the hill there with nowhere to go. And then they sold the lumber to somebody. So whoever is doing all of this is making a profit on it as well. And it was disgusting that they cared more about the people they were building these condos for than all of the citizens that had already lived in Newport for they didn't consider any current citizen of Newport, not one, everyone was just devastated and angry, but to not take anything into consideration. Nothing, not the people that live there, not the people that use the park, not the people that breathe there. It's just unfortunate. So I sell a lot of photography that I take on my runs because I like to run at sunset. And I didn't really realize until this happened that I almost always include trees in my skyline photos, and I've got these stunning pictures from General James Taylor's Park with the Roebling Bridge, with trees, and there's a swing there, for a couple, and I've got cool pictures of a couple on the swing with the trees, and the city in the background. And now when I see those pictures, I just want to cry. And they just don't care. It's all about, in their mind, is just about, making money. Yeah, and those pictures can't be replaced. And I had friends that had their engagement portraits by this tree, one of the big trees down there. And they would go back every year on their anniversary and get a picture by the tree. Tree's gone. Oh, this is just insane. So when you're at the airport and you're getting on the plane, sometimes they have like a mural on the walkway. Yeah, there was one of General James Taylor Park, and all these big lush trees, and the bad guys at the city of Newport who did this said the trees were dead and dying, And after this happened, I would see that at the airport and just be like, oh yeah, yes, those beautiful, lush, dead, dying trees. Just the excuses that they try to come up with to justify that instead of just telling the truth, instead of just giving any warning so that citizens could have any input, on what was going to happen there. There are win-win-win ways to do things. Like wins for citizens, wins for corporations, and wins for the environment. There are win-win-win ways to do things. But that kind of money just they just don't care. They just don't care, So yeah, that's the story.
Valerie Glenn's story. My name is Valerie Glenn, and I live in South Cumminsville. Bought my house 30-something years ago, and people ask me, why did I move to Cincinnati? And I always felt like it had a lot of potential. Where my house is, it sits downhill from the rural apartments, and then there's the Tappan Avenue. And when it rains, all the water comes past the rural apartments to tap into my yard and into the sewer system. So that was a big problem, especially when they tore down the house next door, because all that topsoil and everything just went into the sewer. So I noticed Cincinnati was into a program about landslides and save the water, and I was like, well, y'all done missed my house totally, because when y'all tore down the house next door, you also tore down the retaining wall, and so all that topsoil and everything just goes right down the drain. We did have people come out from the city, MSD and Cincinnati Waterworks, and they went up on Tappan, and it was so funny because they were arguing who was responsible for this water, and MSD climbed up on in there, and he comes down and he was like, yes. And I was like, yes, it is. And so a week later, they came back out and they built a new, I guess you would say, sewer system or gutters or whatever for Tappan. So it caught majority of the water, but it doesn't catch it all. So, because before they did that, people had to park in the yard, and it's just to get in their house, and it stayed wet. And then they found out the owners of the rural apartments didn't let them know that they were working on the system up in there in the rural apartments. So when I mentioned that, he looked like, no, we don't have nothing on the books for that. And I started laughing, and I said, well, that's what they're doing. So they got fined big time for not letting the city know that that's what they were doing. So I had different people come out. A building inspector came out with which is Raquel, and walked through my land and everything. And he says, well, why don't you put in a bioswale? And I'm looking at him like, what? And who? And he said, bioswale. So Roger came out with a bunch of volunteers from, I think it was Xavier, and they built a bioswale from one corner of my yard all the way down to halfway on the lot next door. And at the end of the bioswale, we put in a rain garden. So we got all this gravel, so it does catch the water. It does help some. And water gonna do what the water wanna do. So sometimes it'll run over, but it's helpful. Then all the plants I put in there, everybody told me, no, well, you can eat this, and you can make tea out of that. And I'm looking at them like, yeah, right. I don't think so. And so now we have a project with, I can't think of the lady's last name. I know it's German. Her first name is Susan or something. But I think she's from the permaculture department somewhere. Now we are dividing the hill, and I told her, I said, you're gonna hit a lot of rocks, because when they tore down that house, they pulled everything into that hole. So we're gonna do 3 tiers. Top of the tier is gonna be 2 apple trees with plants in the middle. Come down towards the middle, she's going to plant bushes that are gonna have berries or something that's gonna be eatable. And then at the bottom, there's gonna be plants that are eatable for people. So that is the stage I am in right now. Not only to save my hill, but to also do some type of produce for the neighborhood and people right now. Because right now, even with the minor setbacks with the government, if you could pick an apple, make an apple pie or anything, that'll help you get through the day. So let's say I bought the lot next door, and we are really working on it to keep it from sliding further. I had Habitat for Humanity come out, and they did a lot of outside work on my house because it's about 130 years old. So no lead, but it looks great. So that's my story, and hopefully y'all ride by and see my house after we get the apple trees and everything in. But it's come a long way with trying to save it. Yeah.
Very Kroner's story. All right, my name is Mary Kroner. I live in Northside. I've lived in Northside almost 30 years now, and what I can tell you about myself is that I am a tomboy, and I've always enjoyed being outdoors. So the simple story I want to tell you, it's funny to me how it unfolded considering that's who I am. So this story is about this little river that runs through our neighborhood and coming to see this river in a whole new way. And what's funny to me is, why would I not just see this river and think fish and just have that whole relationship? But the story is that the river was so physically altered over the years and polluted that it was hardly recognizable as a river. In fact, many of us in Cincinnati, we'll drive right over it or we'll drive right alongside it and we don't even know it's there. And I think that's an amazing thing. So there's this period of time when I was a kid. It was the butt of all jokes. The thing is, I grew up in the 60s, but my parents would talk about how bad it smelled and the weird chemical colors it would turn. And I remember my mom would drive out of her way to not be too close to it on a really stinky day. And that's because industries were just putting stuff in there. And when the sewage system would overflow, that would go right in there. And when I say sewage, I'm talking about poop. So it's kind of like it's, anyhow. So we call this river Mill Creek. But for how many of hundreds of years before that, it was called the Mactua by the Shawnee. And the name was changed when the early settlers started buying property, and the guys who originally bought these huge tracts of property and subdivided it needed to make it in a way to make it attractive to people. So they changed the name on the maps to Mill Creek, and it made people think, I can build a mill here and make some money. So within 10 years of the name change, there's 28 mills all up and down the road, or maybe not 28, but there's a lot of mills down the whole length of it. So I think I love that little story about it. So in the 90s, there's this group of people learn and start to pay attention that large sections of Mill Creek are completely dead. There's no life forms in them. In the 60s, it had been channelized with concrete, so none of the fish could swim upstream. And it created these weird little dams and little spots where it was just completely dead. So these people in the 90s, they get this idea, right? They're like, oh, we're gonna save that river. And they call themselves, I think it was the Mill Creek Restoration Project. And I remember reading that in the 90s, and I actually cut it out and stuck it in a manila folder because I was like, I want to follow this. It's amazing how people would have it, but my life changed. I became a parent, and wherever that manila folder was, I lost track of it. So fast forward, we're in the 2010s, I'm gonna guess. I start walking this concrete paved path on Mill Creek. It was new. Well, it was new to me. It had only been there for a short amount of time. And I walk on it a lot. And before I ever realized, oh, this is part of the efforts that these people made to make this river more enjoyable, to one of the ways. But that's not how it was going for me. At this period in time, I was trying to open my restaurant with my friend David. And it took us 2 years to get the funding, to get the builders, to get the permits, just on and on and on. So I would walk this path every day because that's how I was processing the process. And the river wasn't even there to me. I'm gonna tell you, the river, this was the setting. On this side is William P. Dooley bypass, and there's cars just flinging by, and then there's this skinny little path, the Mill Creek path, and then there's this chain link fence that always has garbage blowing up against it, and then there's this wall of honeysuckle, and then at the very bottom, there's the river. And then there's 2 railroad tracks if you go up, and there's always freight trains just going on it all the time, and then right above that is Interstate 75. So it's just this corridor of, and so you're like, yeah, whatever. I wasn't thinking about a river. But over the course in time, and then there was this one day where I just stopped. And I looked out over the chain link fence, and I saw a curve in the river, and I saw that big rally sign you can see from the interstate. And I just thought, oh my God, this was a beautiful river at some point. There were curves and trees, and it was like this very touching moment for me. It really struck me. So after that, I started paying more attention. I started doing volunteer work with helping people clear out the honeysuckle and the trash. And I read this book called, what was it? The Mill Creek, An Unnatural History of an Unnatural Urban Stream. And this book, it made me sad and mad, but it also made me hopeful because it was telling the story of all the work that people had been doing all these years. It was the history of this creek. And it goes back to pre-glacial times, so you get this complete overview and history of before settlers came in, and then the settlers come, and they take out the forest, and in a short amount of time, they completely corrupt the river. So having learned all of that, then one day in my restaurant, which has since opened, now that I'm telling you this story, and there's a woman there who was one of the founders of that original project, and she tells me she's retiring, and I said, oh, I'm gonna go. And she takes me back to her office, we have a meeting, and she says that after 25 years she's retiring, and then she says, so we're halfway through our 50-year plan. I just have tears in my eyes because nobody ever thinks of a 50-year plan. Isn't that what we should all be doing? So it became my personal mission to bring up Mill Creek in any conversation I was having. And my friends say, oh yeah, she never shuts up. But I've made 2 performance pieces, and I've used them as fundraisers for the Mill Creek Alliance. And yeah, I love telling that story. So that's my story.
Mary Dudley's story.
My name is Mary Dudley, but my maiden name is Mary Kepler, and sometimes I still sign that, which is funny to me because after being married for 13 years, I still dig that out, and like, where does that come from? And this story is a story that is in progress, and I'm very excited about where it will go, because there's been a lot leading up to this point, and I'm at a very special time where I can have a lot more to do, and I'm very excited about that. When I was a young child, I got a chance to grow up a little on my grandfather's farm in Waynesville. And while I don't remember all of those days because I was very young, I know that it made a huge impact on me and how I want to interact with the world. The freedom to get my feet wet in the dew and the bare grass in the morning, the sound of the cows and the rustle of the chickens really just sparked this love of agriculture in my life, and I didn't even know it, and I rebelled against it for many years after that. I would never help my mother in the garden. I wouldn't want fresh fruit or vegetables. And then I started high school, and I took my first botany class, and this was from a professor, well, I guess we call them teachers. In high school we call them professors, who was very cool. And he would come in and he played guitar and he also played piano, and he had us do leaf collections and bug collections. And every once in a while, he would show up with a baseball hat on. And high schoolers know you're not supposed to wear hats in school, so it was like, when a teacher does, it's a bit like, hey, you're not supposed to do that. And so his explanation is that I have a migraine when my hat is on, and so, not that I'm excited that he had migraines, but when his hat was on, it pretty much promised that we were gonna go do outside to do something with plants. And we were gonna walk around and look at trees, and so that was just a spark for me. I got so excited about that opportunity, and I learned something really fun, which you can keep in your pocket, is ginkgo trees have male and female trees. So some of the ginkgos produce fruit, the females, and some of the males do not. None of the males do. So everyone plants male ginkgo trees because the fruits of the female ginkgo trees, they smell like rotting flesh because they attract flies and beetles that will eat rotting flesh. So not a great smell to have in your landscape. So we had a large male ginkgo tree outside of our principal's office. Well, what can happen is if there's no male, or if there's no female, in about a 5-mile radius, they can actually change sex and become female. So, and so in that past 2 years, that actually happened to this tree. And so it was just so fun. I was like, wait, what? This tree is like revenging on the principal by like making it stinky in his office. Like, I was obsessed. I was like, plants are amazing. And it really hasn't stopped. It keeps growing and blossoming into new things. And so fast forward to my college years, where I thought I was going to become a paper science engineer, because paper comes from plants, and I was like, oh, that would be fun. I can learn more about trees and pulp. And then I went to my first paper mill on a tour, and decided that was probably not for me, actually. Lots of machine work, lots of cool things going on there, but not a lot of actual interaction with the plants in that setting. And so I ended up taking a dendrology class, which is the study of trees. Again, really fun professor. You had to keep up with him. You had to run after him because there's a lot to see. And I went to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, which is a gorgeous campus, lots of wood to explore. And so I took an internship at the Civic Garden Center while I was at Miami University, and fell in love with the combination of people and plants. So there are a lot of amazing plant scientists in the world that are doing wonderful work, but I didn't really want to look through a microscope for a significant part of the day. I really wanted to be working with people. And so I started doing botanical garden studies, And my team of professors supporting me were just fantastic, and I was able to successfully graduate with a degree in botany and be able to build these communities around my whole love of plants, other people's passion for local food, and just trying to do something positive. So staying optimistic in the face of adversity, building resilience and communities that can withstand pressures and challenges, and all of that happens in the garden. It's like this leveling field. We all look the same when we're digging in the dirt. It doesn't matter, what you're doing later that day or, maybe what you had for breakfast. When we're all doing this together, it really makes a difference. And so that has impacted everything that I've done since. And now that I'm getting into my later career, I am starting to mentor. And I am very proud to see our young interns catch that fire and take that glow with them into a passion for soil and talking to me about, just looking at the dirt and all the invertebrates that they see. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, you're a senior in high school and you're telling me that you're impressed by the soil ecosystem and that you're seeing when you're weeding plants. And that is a connection that we can share. And I hope that I'm able to continue that mentoring while I am being mentored. And so, So in this most recent development, I was introduced to this wonderful world of herbalism. And I think I'm finally at a point in my career where I can confidently say, this plant is this plant, I know this is this plant, so I can eat this plant, or say, I don't want to eat this plant, but in confidence. I can identify plants in nature when I'm foraging. And so now I'm able to start collecting things and processing them and turning them into lotions and balms and tinctures, and making medicine out of plants has been something that has spoken to me, but never really caught on. And so I'm very grateful for the new teachers that I'm learning from. Some of this is amazing indigenous knowledge that we have lost over time, and trying to recapture some of the traditional practices of building that together. And so the future is bright. I absolutely cannot wait for tomorrow. The new things I'm going to learn from the plants, which are amazing teachers, and from the people around me. I just actually ended up at a plant swap last night at the Westwood Farmers Market, where we had over a dozen people bringing house plants and native plants and seeds, and all talking together about how we can continue to make our community strong and beautiful for future generations.
John Aguilar Dwyer's story. Hi, my name is John Aguilar Dwyer, and I'm born and raised here in Cincinnati. I had the incredible opportunity to explore nature growing up here. I was homeschooled, and my four older brothers and I would go out into the forest every week, but specifically we'd go out once a month with this young naturalist group where we would explore all the greater Cincinnati areas and green spaces, and we would drive anywhere from 5 to 50 miles away from Cincinnati to explore these state parks and these county parks and wildlife preserves, and that just really opened up my mind, my passion for the environment, just always spending time outside and exploring the birds and just seeing really pristine, beautiful nature. And I love Cincinnati. I love the Midwest conservation efforts, but I found myself moving to Texas because I was offered a full-time position down with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife following college graduation. And I took the leap, moved to, it's somewhere, but I'd never heard of Brazonia, Texas. It was 50 miles south of Houston, and I lived on 180,000 acres of swampland there for about a year, and almost complete isolation from anyone. The town that I moved to had about 300 people, and so I spent a lot of time at my library researching wildlife conservation or learning new foraging skills, like how to forage in Texas versus Ohio, finding edible foods. But this oasis that I was on was absolutely tremendous. It was gorgeous till you realize there's mosquitoes, there's rattlesnakes, there's scorpions, there's alligators, and there's wild boar filling these forests. And so there's a little bit of awe and inspiration coming from it, without your and a lot of humility and respect, because you go out into Texas wildlife without your water, without your backup water, without your radio to call for help or something, if the animals interact with you and you're alone. That was very humbling, the respect for nature, because so much more, it was so much more intense down in Texas. It seems like nature was doing everything in its power to make sure you weren't there. Humans are wild, and we've adapted to some of these places. I can't believe so many thousands of people lived in Texas before air conditioning was invented. I don't know how that's possible, but it was just a really incredible landscape. I learned so much about habitat management, along with the coast and hurricane threats. And so we are, or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife was almost like a protective boundary for the city residents. That was really neat that we were so far away, but having such an impact on urban environment. We were enhancing bird migration habit for all the animals that migrate from Canada, from Michigan, all the way down to Texas. So it's really cool to see this intersection of life happening in Texas. I think along with many people, COVID really reset their lives, or people started to rethink about what they wanted to do in the next 5 years. And I wanted to be a little closer to family. So during COVID, I did move back to Cincinnati and started to work with Mill Creek, the Alliance, which is a local environmental nonprofit here in Cincinnati, restoring the most endangered river in North America. And the Mill Creek Alliance is just doing tremendous work here in Cincinnati, and I hope that they flourish. My career path has fluctuated, right? I think we talk about school and college like it's this sequential order that you're going to achieve this, you're going to go on to this, and then you're going to get this. And my pathway has been like a 360, 180 elliptical shift, and it's just taken all sorts of twists and turns. But every position I've held, every experience that I've taken part in has just enhanced my tool belt. Teaching kids has helped with classroom management and managing large groups of people. Working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, it's taught me to be okay in silence and not interacting with people. So how to motivate yourself and keep yourself disciplined. Those have been some great skill sets, working with the Mill Creek Alliance, and just realizing relationships are crucial, and investing into people authentically has been a pivotal point in my career. For anyone who's not where they want to be yet, I just encourage them to keep going. I never thought in a million years I would be where I am. I've accepted a position with Cincinnati Parks as the conservation land manager. Blown away. On Tuesday, we were looking at a map, and I realized I am in charge of a very forested section in every forested section in the entire city of Cincinnati, and an honor, humbling, and terrifying. Again, I'm being brave, just trying to say yes. The geography has drastically different, but the plant identification that I learned in Texas has been highly useful still here in Cincinnati as well. Had I moved to Cincinnati or Colorado or Wisconsin, that change, that horizontal change, there wouldn't be as many similar species between these. Even if I was 600 miles away from Cincinnati, it was like I was going down to end up with similar species. That really has helped. I tell people I migrated with the birds.
Shamariah Brown's story. I'm Shamariah Brown. I live in South Cummingsville. I did a project once with the school kids at Ethel Taylor to make new signs for the trail. That was what we hoped to do. And for that project, we took the kids on a walk of the trail, and as we were passing what I now know is the fire station, but was always just a building with no signage, no indication of what it was. They, unprompted, start talking about the issues that the school was causing them. The fire training facility is causing them. So, this facility not only does the fire department train, like they're firefighters for extinguishing fires, they are also a bomb detonating facility. So this is where the fire station brings suspicious packages to detonate. And it is 1 block away from an elementary school, 2 blocks away from a daycare, and then you have all of Millville, which is a housing development behind them, and a rec center, all right there, just across the street. So yeah, we're having this walk, and the kids are talking. They're 1st through 3rd graders. They're very, very young. They're saying things like they can't concentrate, they can't concentrate because there's explosives going off, they can't focus, they can't breathe because all the smoke coming into the building to where the school has to close the vents inside the windows when the fire department is training. Kids and people living there just develop asthma or COPD or other lung-related issues just living there. Hearing this from kids, you know how terrifying that must be? One child, she had to be like 6 years old, but she said that they usually will call the school to let them know when they're about to do the explosives. But at some point, they didn't. And she thought that the school was, she thought that the school was under attack. So, like, all of that together was just like, oh yeah, that was in. I was working as a community organizer. I'm like, well, I'm gonna use my resources to, do something. I don't even know what the outcome could have been, but something. And, worked with my supervisor to get in contact with the fire department. They gave me a date, which was like less than 2 weeks. They told me this, and it was when he will be able to come. Boom, that's the time you got. So I had very little time to organize, but I did. I figured that the kids probably were not going to be there, but I did have them write letters. I gave them big pieces of paper and said, draw, write, do, just something to let the fire chief know how it makes you feel. And gave it to him in a manila folder at the meeting that he probably never read. He did read one after having to be kind of coaxed onto doing it. They gave me 10 days. They gave me 10 days, so less than 2 weeks. Door knocking in Millville. I'm not from Millville, never been there, so I reached out to someone that I know in the Millville Resident Council, Ms. Carolyn Gamble. She was wonderful. She was so nice. I was so scared of her. I was so scared to say something to her because, when she's not, she's got that resting, very serious face. Oh my gosh. She was so sweet, just immediately, as soon as she answered the phone, just hello. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy. And we had a good time. I think we probably did 1 or 2 days of just a couple house door knocking, handing out flyers. We did find out that a lot of people weren't even aware that the fire department, that the training facility was there. But yeah, people don't listen to kids, and these kids more than anything have such intimate knowledge about how horrible this thing is to have. Living in poor neighborhoods, like, our experiences are not the same, not taken seriously. I don't know if it's because it's so different from what other people are experiencing that they're like, well, that couldn't be possible. But the kids are like an indicator species. They let you know how things are going overall. Yeah, that's it. That's the gist of it. Listen to the kids.
Wilma Wilson's story. Now, I grew up in this area in 1961. No, 62. I think about 64. I lived on Power Street between Colin and, so it's just right over there. You know, it was okay. The neighborhood was a community and people knew each other. You knew your neighbors, and you know, you talked everything, went to school with the kids, because back then we all walked to school, walked home together, stuff like that. And there'd be these little stores here and there where we stop at, spend our little change, you know, do stuff like that. And coming back to the neighborhood where all of a sudden nobody cared about anything about it, right? And people just dump stuff. I got this house. It was a dollar house back in 2000 when the city was still doing this program where they take these older houses, and if you qualified to get a loan to fix it up, they'd give you the house for $1. And your initial payment was what it took to fix it up. So I read over, it was a list of places all over the city of Cincinnati, from North Side, Avondale, Cumminsville. And one Saturday afternoon, I just rode and looked at the different addresses to see what was around them, how the neighborhood functioned. And over there on Cass, it was real quiet. The street beneath me, Heron, it was a lot of kids, a lot of noise. They was playing, they was having fun though. But up there where I am, it was very quiet. And I thought, oh, I could do this. I could live up here. And I had to have a vision of the house fixed up because it was my girlfriend. When I showed it to her, she said, Wilma done claimed a shack, talking about she got a house. But once I, you know, got through having it partially rehabbed, total partially rehabbed, deciding, you know, the furnace, hot water heater, kitchen, putting up full bathrooms in it, you know, stuff like that, it turned out kind of nice. In the yard, it got this big old heavy metal fence up there that the city maintained because someone even tried to tear that down. Go figure. But next to me, they used to have this, somebody called Lot King on all these lots all over the city of Cincinnati. And people would just dump stuff there. You know, I don't know why people don't know they could just call 311 or schedule a pickup when they got these big bulky items that you want to get rid of. You don't got to just take them and throw them on somebody else's property and just abandon them and leave them. But people were doing that. And every spring they would come and clean up. In the springtime they'd come and clean up. But okay, back to the other part. Me taking on this house and stuff, you were supposed to get involved. Part of the commitment was to get involved in the neighborhood, you know, council, stuff like that, affairs. So after a while, once I retired, especially once I retired, I started going to council meetings and, you know, learning about, because things was happening. You know, like how because one time all these streets was all cut up, especially on the other side of Colin, and we're not like that, but they came through with 74. First, when we lived on the west end, they came through with I-75. It tore down all the nice brownstone buildings. And you know, that was a neighborhood where it was all kinds of classes of people, black people living in the same community, but we all had to go when they decided to do I-75, so I moved to Cumminsville. And all these years later, here they come with 74, wanted to expand it. doing the same thing, tearing up the neighborhood. They took away our exit because you used to be able to get off on 75 and then on the 74, then off by that gas station right there, by Powers right there. But then all of a sudden they closed that down and they doing this and they doing that. It's like, well. We live in this neighborhood and we don't get a chance to say anything about what they doing. We just look up and things happening. So that made me want to pay more attention to what's going on in the neighborhood so I could have a voice. At least if I can't change anything, at least be able to express how I feel about it or how it affects the people who live in the community. Because people making decisions don't live over here. And so I started going to council meetings and stuff like that. And we started trying to tackle problems in the neighborhood like housing. The housing they needed. People needed help maintaining, fixing up, because a lot of people got houses over here, but a lot of them is generational. Like maybe your grandmother or somebody owned the house and passed it to your mother. Then when they die, they pass it on to you. But they don't have funds to keep the property up and fix it up and get things repaired, stuff like that. But other people, they just drive through, they think, they see a poor neighborhood and they just want to dump stuff or they don't want to pay attention to nothing. Because you can even take it over to Queen City Avenue someplace once a month or something. You don't gotta take it to a neighborhood and just dump it in people's backyards. But anyway, I'm next door to this dump site. It gets cleaned up a couple times a year, but they cleaned it up, and as fast as they did that, people come back and want to throw their drywall, furniture, mattresses, all this stuff. So I'm really at my wit's end because I can't even sit on my porch because the stench is so bad from the rain and all the stuff there. People just throwing stuff. And so I kept talking about it and complaining about it. So finally, some city council members and some of the members from our council, they came and did a walkthrough to show them what we're talking about. They walked on up there. They couldn't believe it. They said, that's depressing. It causes depression and stuff like that when you have to come home or you wake up, look outside, all you see is trash and ruins and stuff like that, especially from something like littering, because people don't have to do it. But I guess they don't know they don't have to do it. But anyway, they decided they was going to clean it up, so they cleaned it up and they put up a fence. And now it's so nice to be able to sit outside and not have to look at all that trash, because what they do over there where I live at, when they come through and drop paper and throw stuff on the street litter, we pick it up. At least I do in front of my house. I'll pick it up, throw it away. And I try to maintain my grass on the sidewalk and in my yard and stuff like that. I always say, I want my house to look like somebody lives there. It's not a whole lot. It's a very modest house, but it's mine. You get what I'm saying? And I'm responsible for it. I want, take care of it. But it's just, But I am so grateful that I do get to see some changes in the area, in the neighborhood and everything. And I guess North Side, parts of it have been, gentrified. When they come in, fix it up, get the original tenants out, stuff like that, and it is what it is. But we all have to live on this earth and share these spaces together and respect each other. And it's just so disrespectful to me when people want to come through and make a mess and leave it for somebody else to clean up. And, but when you look at how they live, it's just a mentality. It's like, wow, I don't get it, but, that's it.
So I think Kate Nicole's going to lead, you guys remember Kate Nicole from coming to school? Yeah. She's going to lead a little bit of a chat back to talk, and so proud of you guys. They made it look effortless, didn't they? Yeah, it's really it's really hard for an actor to actually capture another human and keep themselves out of it enough and yet make it so realistic and so flawless, smooth. So very proud of you guys. You did a really great job.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you everyone so much for being here. I thought, so it's 7:15, I thought maybe we could use the next 15 minutes to have a little chat, since this is kind of a different sort of, theatrical production that probably many of you have seen and probably that many of our actors have been a part of. So I thought we could use this as an opportunity to see what it was like from the actors' perspectives. We have some storytellers here with us tonight, so I'd be curious to hear what they think, and then also get a chance for the audience to ask any questions they might have. So we won't go on forever, but let's go on for just a little bit more. And my first question is for our actors here. And I'm curious, what was the process of embodying these stories and storytellers like for you all? And was it different from theatrical experiences that you've had in the past? And if so, how? These are all really talented students from SCPA. They've done lots of this kind of, have done lots of performances, but this might have been sort of a little bit different. So anybody want to start? Here, we'll pass it down.
I don't want to knock over the thing. Learning this story, it was really interesting. When I read the first page and I first listened to Miss Wilson telling her story, I really enjoyed it. I liked her persona, how she conveyed the way that she felt. I'm not gonna lie, learning this story was hard because it is pretty long. Maybe not when you're saying it, but the process of learning it was pretty long because this is a 5-page script. So yeah, it wasn't the easiest process, but having a video of how she acted and how she said things and stuff like that, it definitely did help, and I really did want to try to portray her as best as I could without mocking who she was, and I think who she is. That was a really big part of it. It was hard, but it really is. This is a really nice experience. It was a nice experience learning and working with Miss Carol and all that jazz.
I honestly, it was different. I'm so used to playing these characters they're not really real people. They're not really based on it's not really based on a true story all the time. But this was different. I liked it. It was fun. I love my person. She's funny. I love that about her. But it was a really good experience, and it is different. It is, but Miss Carol made it fun. So, thank you.
Yeah, it was pretty different. It was also weird having a script on stage. I felt like I was sinning as an actor. I felt felt a little wrong, but it's not like we were directly reading off it. We kind of had the scripts up there as a vague outline just so we didn't lose track of the story, because we want to make sure that we're doing everyone justice. When I first took it on, I was like, oh, no big deal, 4-page monologue, and I got to yesterday and I was like, oh my god, help me. Yeah, it was a different process. I was kind of nervous when I first got into it until I watched the video of Mary Kroner, and I was like, oh my god, this is going to be me in 40 years. So I'm just, I'm just embodying myself 40 years from now. But I loved hearing everyone else's stories too. I think it was really interesting, and I didn't know that we had such, obviously people have interesting stories in Cincinnati, but it was interesting just hearing about all the environmental stuff about it, because we live here, we don't really think about it that much. But yeah, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it's so different, like trying to imitate a real person rather than like playing a character, because characters, they're like, they're written by professionals and they're edited and re-edited, and there's so many different interpretations. Like you can go on YouTube and find like 100 different videos of someone doing the same person. But when you're doing a real person, like, what we were given was, one video and a paper script and said, try the best you can to, be this person. And it was challenging, but I hope I did it justice. And it was definitely, it was fun, like being able to, kind of like take in, a person and like, really think about who they are rather than just being told by a director, you don't talk like that, you don't walk like that, this is how you do it. And it's, so yeah, it was challenging, but it was really fun, and it was a really interesting experience.
I thought it was really interesting because, like what Elle said, I've played like real people before, but like I was in Radium Girls with a few of these people, but they're deceased. So playing real live people, like, and knowing that they're going to be out in the audience, like it was like the whole process was a bit nerve-wracking and a little bit stressful, but I really had fun because, I don't know, I grew up around like plants and stuff because like my mother, she works for parks, and so I've always kind of been surrounded by kind of like we had a garden growing up. I always like went on hikes, so it was kind of like, there's a part of the script that's been cut out from the like videos that we've watched, where she talks about like, she did talk about growing up on her grandfather's farm, but like how the plants talk to you, and I just felt like I kind of related to that. I don't know, I really thought that the person that I did, I really liked the energy of it, so I felt like it was a good script for me.
Yeah, this was a real new experience for me. I do creative writing at my school, but I was understudying today. But in the time I had the role, I watched the video a few times and really tried to get, talk like him and sit like him. He sits real upright. And I had a lot of fun. I thought it was a good experience.
Yeah, back to what they said, it's like a different experience for most of us drama kids. We're used to playing fictional characters, getting on stage and being like someone else, but not someone who's also walking like on this earth with us. And it is very nerve-wracking to know that like the person that we have the role of, it could be watching us right now. And it's like a new experience to me, and I enjoy it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My next question, we have some storytellers in the audience. There is no pressure for anyone to feel like they have to come forward, but I am curious if anyone does want to comment on just what it was like seeing your story, portrayed through the lens of these students. Does anyone want to comment on that? No pressure. Sure. Yeah, I want to. Oh, do we want to use this mic? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yay. Good job.
Is this good enough? Can I stay straight up?
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Awesome. You all did amazing. That was incredible, for sure. It was really, really awesome. Like, the environmental circle is kind of small, and so I know some of the people on stage. I was like, oh my goodness, you guys did so good at mimicking or embodying them. That was fantastic. You did incredible. You were given 24 hours and you memorized 15 years, 28 years, like really quickly. So that was really awesome. And the whole time I was on my way here, I was just like in awe. Like, this is so, I have no words to say, express, like, this is just so cool. What an honor it was to be performed. So thank you. Thank you.
There we go. I just want to say thank you, all of you, and to the organizers. Oh my gosh, I was like, so I brought my kids because I was like, this could be like really funny and it might be like roasty, but like it totally wasn't. Like I was like, that's all of these things and the way that you said them, and I got lost in all of your stories because I, knew that my voice was going to be, or my words were going to be voiced tonight, but gosh, I just got so into it. I was like, oh my gosh, who are these other people that I'm hearing about? And now I'm, very intrigued to learn more about these stories because, like Johnny said, we all kind of hear about some of these issues, and I'm like, what is going on with the Mill Creek today? And so the inspiration that you're bringing, because it's a new lens, and so I was really paying very, very close attention to every word that you said. And sometimes I think in our daily lives we miss that because we're in these circles and we kind of hear the same thing, but to hear it come from someone new and in a fresh light, I just thought it was a really great way to tell a story. So I just wanted to thank you for your dedication and professionalism tonight.
Hello. You did really good, thank you. But also, the girl who left who was playing Miss Theresa and you two, y'all are playing my neighbors, women that I've worked very closely with, so it was very, very lovely to see. And I was so nervous to see somebody play me. It's different than like hearing your voice on a recording, like not that type of like weird, but it's like, oh, okay, this is how people see me.
I mean, that is the thing about this. When we were finding our amazing storytellers, I was like, I really need people to know, like, someone will be playing you on stage. Are you okay with that? So I really appreciate, like, all of the storytellers really took a leap, not just in telling their stories, but like being a part of this process. And so I think I'm just so grateful for everyone for being willing. It's a weird thing, but I think it was neat to see. So amazing. Last 2 minutes, I just wanted to see if anyone, audience, actors, storytellers, had any comments on sort of some different takeaways, I guess, about hearing some of these stories about human-environmental interactions in Cincinnati and how we sort of, that was sort of one of the thoughts behind this project, is bringing Cincinnati's environment to life in a different kind of way. So I'm glad, wow, great. Oh, good, we have reflections. How about we start down at this end? There you go.
I don't necessarily know if it's a takeaway, but I really did enjoy listening to all of these stories and seeing how everybody portrayed these people. And I really liked yours, Stella, because you just seemed so excited to talk about it. It's like almost like it was your story. Yeah. And it was just really interesting to see everybody's different portrayals of everybody, and all the stories are so different. Like yours is about was it a river, a lake? Yeah, a river. And I was really intrigued. Nature is a big part of our lives, but sometimes we don't pay attention to it as much as we should or could. And listening to these stories, them each being about nature and our community in some way, and being able to take something different from each one, that's really cool, and I really like that.
Yeah, going off of what Serinity said, I love these stories. I honestly I really didn't know what I was getting into when I first got into it, but then I'm like, okay, wait, this is fun, this is cool, and going on about the nature, like, it really opens our eyes, because I saw Wicked Part 2 with my aunt, and it was about the animals. She was telling me about the animals, and I'm like, sometimes I forget animals even exist. I forget it's like a word. It's like what? I don't know how to explain it, but it really opens. I mean, I do. Hear the word animals sometimes. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Right. But yeah.
I kind of get what you mean. I mean, it's like, you know, we're like living creatures, and then you see another living creature, and you're like, that is not the same thing as I am. Why? How do you exist? My favorite part about this whole project was I got to meet Carol. She was awesome. And also, I really liked how when people heard environmental, they not only thought about nature, but also thought about the government. They thought about like things happening in communities. They thought about houses. I thought that was really cool. It was like, I went into this expecting it to be like just about nature stuff, which is obviously awesome because nature's awesome. But I really liked how people talked about, I loved your story about like buying the house. Like I didn't know that was a thing, and that's crazy. And I loved, I don't know, it was just really fascinating, and I liked that people took the opportunity to talk about all different kinds of environments and not just one certain type.
I guess my reflection is what I thought interesting about Bryn's story was that, you know, some of these stories, you know, they kind of have like, you know, happy endings, or like, you know, like the one about the river where there's actively people working to fix it, and, you know, it's made a lot of progress. And then, you know, John's story about like, you know, coming back home to Cincinnati, like, you know, with his family and stuff. But what intrigued me about Bryn's story is that, you know, it didn't have a happy ending, and it wasn't an ongoing problem. It was just something that happened really fast that just, and I think that that can be applied to a lot of things. You know, if we don't pay attention to our surroundings, things can, you know, get bad a lot quicker than we think they can. And, you know, I guess it's sort of like what I took as the moral of the story is that, you know, you can't just, you know, wait around and hope everything's going to be fine. You know, you have to take action now to make sure, you know, it stays fine. And I think that that is a really, you know, it's sad, but it's also a really powerful message that, you know, you have to pay attention. So.
I feel like during this whole process, it's kind of like, you can like, you're like getting to know these people, like you're getting to know your own person, you're studying their physicality, how they talk, their tone, you know, how they pace their words, things like that, and what they're really like going after. I mean, everybody in this story, like what Kat said, everybody has something different. And so it's just really interesting to like see the contrasting between like some people have emotional ones, some people are like have like more humorous ones, and it's interesting to watch that.
This is more about you guys, because like what I'm about to say, I got to work with people who I usually like never really work with the drama ensemble kids and a creative writing understudy for today. And it was like seeing y'all, like the process of you guys working through your scripts was absolutely like fun. I got to make new friends, meet new people, work with like someone new, have professional experience, and learn about somebody that wouldn't be in a textbook unless like maybe you'll be in a textbook, you never know. But like knowing that I got to do this person before they became famous is like fun. So there was my monologue wasn't, not monologue, my script wasn't really long, but it was very fulfillful. Like I learned a lot, even though like I didn't have a lot of information on the person. So yeah.
Okay, well, we're wrapping it up, but thank you everyone so much for coming. Thanks again to the actors for our wonderful storytellers. To Carol, yes, so this is happening again tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at Liberty Exhibition Hall in Northside. So if you want to see it again, you're of course welcome, or if you want to spread the word, then we would really love that. And just thank you everyone so much, and thank you, Carol.